This is NightCap with Dr. Nola Haynes, streaming only on the Persist network.
Welcome back to NightCap. It's Tuesday, July 29th, 2025. Tonight, we're pouring up a truth serum cocktail from the still smoldering Epstein files to whether America's courts can actually rescue our democracy, plus the legal landmines nobody's Xing about, but probably should be. Joining me is public defender and relentless justice warrior, my friend and fellow persister, Eliza Orlins. She's battled MAGA trolls, billion-dollar prosecutors, and so you already know she'll thrive in the NightCap crosstalk. I'm your host, Dr. Nola Haynes, your favorite political scientist, and also the People's Secretary of State. So grab your bevy, honey, from cocktails to chamomile. Silence your Slack. No, for real, silence your Slack. And let's get into your late night download of the reel. This is NightCap with Dr. Nola Haynes. Tonight, we are rolling out a very new special segment just for our guest, Eliza Orlins. So on NightCap, we like for our guests to feel spoiled, and we like them to know that we put a lot of thought into their visit here on NightCap. So we came up with a little game called Plead the Fifth, just for Eliza. And so you have to continue to watch the entire show because you don't know if she will or won't plead the fifth. All right, folks. So jumping into the people's brief, there's so much that I want to cover. There's so much that I want to talk about, but I want to make sure that we ground, our conversations in truth, that, we ground a lot of what we're saying in data. That's very important to me as a social scientist, as a political scientist, that that you can trust us. That on NightCap, yes, we might have a little toast and we might, talk about my lipstick choice and stuff like that. But we also want to make sure that we are adding value to your day, that you are leaving here knowing something that you didn't know before. And so, one of the organizations that I'm affiliated with and is also a Persist network partner, National Security Action, they did this wonderful survey. This isn't the first one. They go out in the field and they test people's thoughts and behaviors on foreign policy and national security. Now, why is this important? Now, for the last election, arguably, can we go back to the first? I want to say the name of the, So arguably, people, there is this trope, or there's this idea that exists out there that says people don't care about foreign policy when they vote. Okay. Now, we all know how strongly people feel about Israel and Gaza. As someone who works on a college campus, I can tell you what I saw up close. And I can tell you that it absolutely mattered a great deal to students. It mattered a great deal to my students. So in my world, not only as faculty on a college campus, but also as a Black woman in academia, where a lot of my other friends and colleagues were seeing the same things, So what I'm saying is, in many different directions, Gaza mattered. Now, did it move the needle? In certain cases, yes and no. So what National Security Action does, they go out and they field these surveys. And this particular one is called The Politics of National Security, Making the Case Against a President Who is Making America Less Safe. And they have the data to back that up. All right. So one of the slides, one of the slides that really kind of stood out to me was this idea. Let me see. I think it's the third slide. No. Well, actually, let's stay here for a second, because, what's really interesting, what's also been in the news, is Donald Trump's trip to Scotland and making this deal with the EU. And, I can tell you by being a Trump watcher since the beginning that they are going to make a meal out of this. Anything to get Epstein out of the news. They are going to make it seem like Donald Trump made the bestest deal ever. It was the most amazing thing ever to ever happen. Agreed upon 15% tariffs between the EU and the United States, bringing it down from 30% tariffs. injecting something like $600 billion into the U.S. economy. We still need to see the details of this deal and to see if it's an actual deal, because that's kind of like, the slick stuff that this administration likes to do. They like splashy headlines, but it's hardly ever followed up with any kind of substance. All right, so there are quite a few issues that the American public care a great deal about. And inflation and the cost of living is one of them, jobs in the economy. And in addition to economic issues, people also care about American democracy, national security, and immigration. But as you can see, those top two things that the top two things are economically driven. So when I say that they are going to dine out on this EU deal, they are going to dine out on it just so you all can, try to forget about Epstein, right? And we're going to have Eliza Orlins on, and she's going to tell us why we cannot forget about Epstein, why MAGA is still going crazy over Epstein, and why foots need to be kept on necks regarding Epstein. Okay, there's one more slide that I want to show that's also really important here. Now, one of the things, let me see, is it the next slide? Yes, so this one is very important. Okay, so one of the foreign policy issues around Donald Trump, and also a national security issue, is he a liability? Can he keep us safe? And the way he was pushing away partners and allies. So what does it mean that he made this deal with the EU? Partners and allies who some of Trump's decisions, regarding Iran or Israel and Gaza or Ukraine, were not seen as very favorable, and not to mention the whole tariff situation by our partners and allies in Europe. So does this mean that all is well, that all is forgiven with this deal and with the EU? That's still, we'll still see, but the fact remains, all voters feel less safe with Donald Trump at the helm. And that is Democrats, Republicans, and other groups of people, independents. All voters, 49%, feel less safe with Donald Trump at the helm. That's important. Will this deal do something to help those poor relations with our partners and allies, to reassure them that we have their back and we're not going to abandon them, that we're going to stick to all the different points that the deal make? All of this is still yet to be seen. But what we do know is that Donald Trump is going to stay golfing. No matter what is happening around the world, what disaster is happening, he's going to make sure he gets to a golf course. And it's usually going to be one of his golf courses where he can have the advantage. So let's wait and see what's going to happen with this deal. But the important takeaway here is I genuinely do not like the term "don't get distracted." Oh, this is a distraction. All of those iterations drive me crazy. But in this instance, with this deal that you're going to hear about over and over and over again, is to mask a lot of the realities that's happening here domestically. So he's using foreign policy as a way to distract from domestic policy. People at, this right here on the screen, on the left, these are the words that people, on the right are saying, and on the right in blue are the things that people in the democratic ecosystem are saying. Tariffs, tariffs, tariffs. What does that mean? What is that going to look like? We still do not know. So stay tuned, people. I will come back to this issue and share more facts and details with you all. So when you go out there in the world, you'll be able to say, Dr. Nola told me that 40 plus of Americans do not feel safe with Donald Trump running this country. That is a statistical fact, okay? And the next fact is they are going to use this story as a distraction. I'm sorry, I had to say it, but in this instance, It is absolutely true. All right, y'all. So I am excited to get into this yummy conversation with my girl, Eliza Orlins. And remember, will she or won't she plead the fifth? Stay tuned. So we're jumping straight into the interview, Eliza. I am so happy that you are here to join us. I watch all of your videos and I learn so much all the time. And one of the things that I know that you are focusing a great deal of your time on is Epstein, Epstein, Epstein. So where are we and why does it matter?
So this Epstein stuff has been absolutely wild to be tracking, because the interesting thing is that so many people in the MAGA world have been obsessed with this Epstein story for years, maybe even over a decade at this point. And all of a sudden, Trump takes office and he says he's going to release the files. Then he says the files don't exist. Then he says they do, and then of course his deputy attorney general, Todd Blanche, his former criminal defense attorney, is off to Tallahassee to meet with Ghislaine Maxwell in federal custody and give her limited immunity, queen for a day. And so this story has got some real staying power. And I think it's not just about the story of one man. It's about all of the very powerful people and powerful institutions that have enabled him.
So I've been hearing two things out here in these social media streets, and I kind of want your perspective. So there are some folks in the media world who believe that if there was a there, by now we would have heard the there, but that the strategic drip, drip, drip has its function in that get as much of the drips and drabs out there, let it all be out there so we can move on. I find that logic to be a tiny bit flawed. And then the second thing I'm hearing is Epstein is really kind of a excuse, if you will, for folks who are kind of looking for an off ramp. Not that they don't care about it, but it's their leader, it's their God with a G, right? With a small G. So why this? Why now? There are other things that they've been up in arms about, but this Epstein thing seems to be a little different. Do you think that there's any that this claim is valid at all, that a lot of MAGA folks are looking for an off ramp and this Epstein thing could be that?
It's so interesting because there have been so many times throughout the many years that Trump has now been in the public eye that I thought, well, this will be the thing that makes his base abandon him.
Right.
How many times have we thought that, right?
Yes.
Like, okay, well, this is the thing, this is the thing. And then
Yep.
none of those things have been the thing. And even like he said, he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and people would not abandon him.
Mm-hmm.
It's unbelievable to see that his base is actually turning on him based on this Epstein stuff. And I think that the reason behind that is twofold. I think, first of all, it's something that kind of they were obsessed with to begin with, that he fed that obsession, that he called out these people, the original QAnons had all these theories about like child sex trafficking rings.
Right.
Like this is their like their thing that they've held on to. And now to think that they're capital D, capital L, dear leader might have been involved with this, I think is maybe finally a breaking point for some of them. I mean, we've seen some of his diehard supporters and even some of his mainstream, these podcast bros, the Theo Vaughns of the world say, hey, wait a minute. Why aren't you releasing? Like, what is going on here? You promised this. JD Vance came on Theo Vaughn's show and said, yes, this will be a priority for our administration. And now they're backtracking. And so I think it's the hypocrisy, but it's also they think of themselves as the party that wants to protect children.
Yeah, that part is very interesting considering how much is already out there in the public sphere. Those photos are jarring, seeing him with young women and young women sitting on his lap. I mean, those things have been out there. So what I'm hearing you say, and what I think can help people understand this is a little bit different. Yes, there's been information in the public sphere, but it came out of Donald Trump's mouth. It came out of JD Vance's mouth that this was a top priority and that Trump has nothing to hide. So why wouldn't he release the files? And then we get to that moment, then all of a sudden it's a conspiracy theory, with the Democrats. Obama is a traitor and all the things, right? So that's kind of like the difference with this particular issue.
Yeah, I think that's true. Like, that's absolutely accurate. And I think like this is a byproduct of like Epstein, wasn't just a predator. He was protected by powerful institutions. He
Yes.
got a sweetheart deal in Florida. He was protected by prosecutors, by judges, by the media, by billionaires. And then, if if Trump really does go so far as to commute her sentence, it will show us like exactly where he stands. And I really think people are going to lose their minds.
Yeah. So this one isn't going away, folks. There
It is
have been
not.
people who have said that it's going to go away. Every day there seems to be more steam put behind it, and not by our side per se. You know what I'm saying? It's by his folks. So yes, we're going to keep an eye on this, and we're going to keep talking to you about this issue, Eliza. But another part of the conversation that is interesting is this idea that democracy, from my perspective as a political scientist, is literally hanging on a string, hanging off a cliff. And there is this idea that the courts can save us by some. And then there are others who are like, the courts, they're not about to do anything, especially when we have a Supreme Court that seems to, just part the Red Sea for Donald Trump. Can the courts save us, Eliza Orlins?
Well, listen, courts are reactive for the most part, not proactive.
Mm-hmm.
And courts are also made up of people. Institutions alone are never going to save us. So I think that it's something that everyone needs to focus on and realize that, prosecutors, for example, have enormous power and they say they're there to protect the public, but who counts as the public? And judges can rule justly or they can enable abuse. It depends who's in the seat, not the seat itself. And so I really think that the people think of the courts as being apolitical, right? They're supposed to be these neutral arbiters of justice, but that doesn't always translate, right? Because we see how Trump has packed the courts both during his first term and now again. And we can't treat the judiciary like they're superheroes who are going to swoop in and save us, because that doesn't always translate. Mm-hmm. And I think, there are some circumstances where these rulings have been, very, very protective, and we've been very lucky to have certain rulings come our way, but the courts cannot save us.
Okay, folks, you heard it from Eliza. I mean, I always sit on the side of optimism, but this time around, Trump 2, which for many of us who follow this stuff very closely, we knew it was going to be crueler. We knew it was going to be vindictive times 1,000, right? But I think a lot of people are shocked the ways in which the Supreme Court is kind of showing up for Trump in a way that I'm not shocked. The lower courts, not in every instance, but the lower courts, I'm thinking back to the first round of the travel bans. I remember all the lower courts, were like, this is racist, like this is out of control. And then the first Trump administration just kept going back to the Supreme Court over and over until they got it right, until they got the ruling that they wanted. Is that justice?
No, of course not. And we know that for the most part, the Supreme Court is going to step in and rule in Trump's favor. This is a Supreme Court that is so unbelievably corrupt. If you look at all of these investigations into Clarence Thomas and his, who he's bought off by, it is truly disgusting that, that's the highest court in our land. That is someone with a lifetime appointment. And, we say that the courts can do good if the people who are sitting on them do good, are good people, et cetera. And we know Clarence Thomas is not a good person.
Right. So we have people in there that are very self-interested and that have done things that do not seem to align with just, the red letter of the law, to say that they're constitutionalists and originalists. Sometimes it seems more like Trumpist. That's just my lay opinion. So that brings us to our next topic. What should we be thinking about? What legal matter out there are we not thinking about and talking about enough, and we should be? What should we be talking about on Threads and Blue Sky, and what's that issue for you?
I mean, I have so many. I think that in terms of legal issues we're not talking about, I mean, I really think that we have to always be thinking about the fact that, prosecutorial misconduct and the way that prosecutions are used as a weapon to basically, marginalize and oppress people of color, low-income folks, people with disabilities, LGBTQIA folks. Really, our criminal legal system has been co-opted into an extension of slavery. It is just disgusting the way that our criminal legal system operates and gives passes to people with power, with money, and then continues to harm everyone else.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
That's always a favorite topic for me.
But I think that's really interesting. But before we move on to our next segment, Plead the Fifth, that is really interesting, that comment you mentioned about slavery, because I was talking to Reese Colbert about this on her show on Saturday, that my fear for what we're seeing with these internment camps, these prison camps, is tapping into that part of the 14th Amendment where it says that, where it doesn't free prisoners from slavery.
13th.
You know what I mean? The 13th, sorry, I should know that. The 13th doesn't free prisoners from slavery.
Exactly. And I think so many people don't realize that slavery is still legal in our country, and they think that it's not. And, I'm part of a coalition in New York called 13th Forward, and we are trying to abolish slavery in New York. You would think slavery in New York, what are you talking about? But it exists. It literally exists for my clients who are sitting in prison.
Wow. I'm happy that we pulled on that thread a little bit, because people really need to understand that slavery, a form of slavery, is still very much legal in this country. And with the shortage of, migrant workers, who else is going to be out there in those fields? We're not. The two of us will not be.
No. Hopefully,
exactly.
We'll see what happens. I think the other topic what I was gonna say for what legal matter we're not paying attention to is lawsuits as intimidation. The way that Trump and many wealthy individuals are weaponizing lawsuits, like through slap suits. Basically, these lawsuits aren't even about winning. They're about draining people's time and money and energy, and really locking them up. And then people who can't afford to defend themselves are having to settle. And, they're using these things to go after people who speak out. And, it's really an attack on our First Amendment rights.
So folks, you've learned two things in the last 3 minutes. You've learned slap suit, and you've learned that slavery is still legal in the United States of America. All right, so let's pivot to something a little lighter. We talked about some heavy things, so kind of want to make this a little interesting a little bit and shake it up. So we like to come up with these fun ideas, kind of tailored and bespoke for our guests. And so we came up with a segment just for you called Plead the Fifth. Let me explain the rules. So, Eliza gets one I plead the fifth pass. After she burns it, every remaining question must be answered. No dodging. So say, for instance, I ask a question, if you were on the Supreme Court, what would be your one issue that you would try to hold on to or overturn? Eliza could either say, I plead the fifth, because she doesn't want to answer it, or she can answer the question. So that plead the fifth is a lifeline for Eliza. Okay, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's get into it. I'm excited about this. Okay. Question number one, your attorney general for the day. What's the first prosecution you greenlight?
Well, actually, I'm going to flip this on its head. If I'm attorney general for the day, I wipe every single marijuana conviction of every single person who has ever been convicted.
Yes. Okay.
Instead of bringing a prosecution,
Girl.
let's wipe that. The way
Yes.
our war on drugs has been a war on people is just, it's despicable.
Okay, we coming out the gate strong. Yes, sis. Okay, I vote for you already.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Client confesses live on TV. Do you stay on the case or walk?
Stay. Everyone deserves a defense. Everyone has the right to counsel. And who knows how that confession came about.
You're such a lawyer. I knew you were going to say stay. The best lawyers would stay because that is your job, and your job is not easy. All right,
Exactly.
Number 3. You can rewrite one SCOTUS decision from scratch. Which one and why?
I mean, there are so many bad decisions, but I think the obvious answer, the absolute must answer, it has to be Dobbs. It has to be, because women are dying. They're being locked up for flushing a miscarriage. It's a no-brainer. Dobbs.
And I 1000% appreciate you so much for saying that. All right, next one. You can grant whistleblower immunity to one January 6th figure. Who gets it?
Well, literally any whistleblower for January 6th. They all should eventually. I don't believe in incarceration as a vehicle for rehabilitation anyhow. So, if someone wants to whistleblow and on something so horrific like our insurrection that occurred, then everyone.
Okay.
Maybe an unpopular answer, but that's the defense attorney in me.
Yep, exactly. Absolutely. And I think we're getting people, you have to understand how defense attorneys' brains work. Their brains are wired very differently. So I am absolutely loving and so giddy behind these answers. Okay. The biggest courtroom myth TV keeps getting wrong.
Oh, that TV gets wrong. I think that you receive your Miranda warnings at the moment of arrest. You always see people being placed in handcuffs and being told you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You have the right to an attorney. And so many people think, oh, you get your Miranda warnings as you are arrested. And that is simply not the case. If there's no custodial interrogation, you don't get your Miranda warnings. And often the cops will try to get you to say something first and then give you your warnings and then get you to say it again because you already said it to them so that they can, basically circumvent your constitutional protections.
Ooh, honey, y'all getting some tea today. I didn't expect all of that. Okay. I just learned something new. Okay, and the last one, because we know you are booked and busy and your time is short and valuable. The last one. Which civil right is most at risk in the next 5 years?
They all are. That's a hard one. I think that we've seen that they're laying the groundwork and really trying to come after birthright citizenship. I don't think it's actually on the chopping block, but I do think that's what they're coming for. That's what they're laying the groundwork to come for.
Mm-hmm. And, this is the thing that I think a great deal about. I'm one of those strategists who are always thinking ahead. And I'm really worried about the way in which the law is going to be circumnavigated so Trump can stay as long as he wants in the White House until he dies, or make it easy for MAGA to continuously stay in the office of the presidency. Because when he tells people you won't have to vote anymore, that is something that keeps me up at night. He lies every 5 seconds, but if you are a Trump listener the way that I am, inside those lies, he's also revealing to you what he's thinking and what more corrupt things he wants to do. What is your advice to that?
Well, listen, I think there are so many people who've been in my DMs recently saying, oh my God, are we even going to have midterm elections next year? This is so scary. What I say to them is yes. Why would they be fighting so hard to do things like gerrymander Texas in order to pick up seats if they didn't truly believe we were having midterm elections next year. So we need to fight back in states like New York and California. We've already seen our governors are stepping up. And, I've never been the biggest fan of Kathy Hochul nor Gavin Newsom, but I am really proud of the Democratic governors who are stepping up in this moment to say, you know what, if you're going to do that, we're going to fight back. We're going to fight fire with fire. And we are going to make sure that they can't rig these elections.
Absolutely. And, this is a conversation that I can definitely extend longer. But again, we want to be mindful of your time. And I'm just so
I could chat with you all day. You're amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. This platform is built for the Persist community. And one of the things that I love about Persist women is the level, the depth of substantive conversations that we can have, but we can also, talk about other things too, so this platform was built to kind of highlight those layers of our personalities. And, although that this conversation was kind of heavy and kind of dense, I am always drawn to how personable you are. That's what makes me stop and watch your videos, because I don't see you as some kind of robotic lawyer, who's just telling me codes and laws and stuff like that. You're passionate and you're honest. And I am just so grateful for the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. And back at you. I feel the exact same way. You are so incredible at the way that you really make these things accessible to people. And I think that's what we're both trying to do, like not just talk over people. Certainly with your level of education and everything else, like you could speak about everything on a super high level, but we try to make this accessible because we want people to understand what it is we're fighting against and how to fight back.
Absolutely. And with that call to action, tell people how to find you so they can know what's real and what's not real.
Absolutely. I am on quite literally every platform. Orlins on Instagram, Eliza Orlins on TikTok. I have a Substack, which I call Objection Everything. And I'm on YouTube at eliza.orlins. Really just find me everywhere. Blue Sky Threads. I even still have a Twitter/X account. But really, I think that sharing our videos, making sure that people understand what's really going on is so critical in these really, really tough times.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for your time. We're going to have you back. I love this interview and I love the value that you bring to everything that you do and say. So thank you so much today for this wonderful, wonderful conversation, friend.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. And then we'll talk to you later.
Talk soon.
So where can you watch NightCap? So you can watch NightCap on the Persist Network, on our YouTube, and then also on our Substack. And then you can also watch NightCap on my YouTube and my Substack, all at Nola Haynes, and then also at the Persist Network. We will have so much exciting content when you subscribe to the Persist Network Substack. You not only get NightCap, you get Wait a Damn Minute, you get our special events that we have. We just hosted one called The Gather. On my Substack, you get to see different things that I'm doing. I'm releasing the security brief in August, and I'm really excited about. That is a deep briefing on national security and international security issues. And you get to keep up with me. I'm also partnering with an event called Eyes Wide Shut that's paying attention to sex trafficking in the Black community. I've posted about it today on all of my socials. The RSVP link is there. It's clickable. It'll take you right there. So you join my Substack, you get to keep up with me. You join the Persist Network Substack, you get to keep up with all the different shows that are dropping with Persist. So subscribe, get engaged, share, like, and we'll see you in the comments.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to Persist on Substack, YouTube, and Instagram.